We're going to continue on with our estimated perspective using a measuring line. This time we're doing the left hand wall. We'll be looking at the table. We'll begin with that because it's our square in the foreground. The light above it, this built-in piece of cabinetry here, our vertical banner, our built-in display here, possibly this, and probably our man as well. You need to keep your floor plan handy. I've already folded my cartridge paper in half and found the center, the vertical center. So now my next job is to put my 10-inch measuring line up. It's very important this be in the exact center of your page because we do want a true 45-degree perspective, and we'll only obtain that if on our eye level, our left and right vanishing points are the same distance apart from the center line. So about 1/4 of an inch again down from the top of the page. Make sure it's down from the top of the page and not right at the top of the page. We'll start to put in our increments, and we'll have some space down at the bottom of the page, which is always ideal. It gives your eye a way to enter into your drawing. Again, our eye level is going to be at 6 feet, so we'll put 0 is at the bottom always. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. If you're trying to keep everything as straight as you can, that's our 6-foot eye level. And our vanishing points are going to go as far over to the left and right as you can possibly get them. Our perspective will be far less distorted if we do that. So that's our left VP and our right VP. And as I mentioned, we're going to start with our little table in the foreground. It was 3 feet by 3 feet. So we're going to use our left vanishing point to put the first side in. We don't know how far we're going, so just extend it. It's a good way to have more correct corners when your lines cross over like that. We know that it's 3 feet high, so you need a scrap of paper with you at all times. That way you can transfer measures. So it's 3 feet wide by 3 feet wide, and if we look at what 3 feet is at this point on the grid without any distortion or any perspective, that's what it is. Now I know when I turn this sideways that this cannot be that long because of foreshortening, so I'm going to cut a fair bit of that off. And I'm going to try this. We'll see how it goes. I'd actually like a bigger table, so I'm just going to maybe go a little more. That's the great thing about estimated perspective. You can turn things to your advantage. I don't want this to be a tiny little table. I want to be able to see it. So I'm going to make it maybe a little bigger than I ought to. But it's nowhere near as big as 3 on my measuring line. So here's 3, and I'm cutting back maybe 1/2 inch. I'll use my right vanishing point to get the next side. Where it crosses, I know that if I go the other way to my left vanishing point and cross right over that crossing, I will have an equal-sided box in perspective because I'm at 45 degrees on either side. It's 45 degrees in perspective. If you were to measure this with your protractor, that would not be the truth at all. Now, again, I don't know how tall to bring it up, but you bring your verticals up because if you don't have them, remember, you can get lost, so you need them as soon as you can get them up. You do all 4 corners, but since my front and back line up, I don't have to worry about the back one. The table, we decided we're going to make it the size of an ordinary table, and that's 30 inches. Let's go with 2.5. If you want it to be taller, then that's not a problem at all. You'll be able to do that. But I know some have bakeries and cafes, and this might be the side that you choose, and you'll have a ready-made table that you can use. And I'm just following through now. So as soon as I knew what that was, I brought it back, and now I have a crossing over that will tell me how to go to the other side. And what's good here now to notice is that this is lining up right here. So now I know that the top is an equal-sided box, and so is the bottom. we made the X down here and we based our legs on the X. But your legs, your pedestal could be a pedestal, doesn't even have to have legs on the bottom, or it could actually have a round base that's smaller than the top circle. But for now we'll put in the X and we'll have it there if we need it later. And at the top we'll make the circle. And don't forget always to take the center back to your vanishing point. Everything will be off on your circle if you don't do that. And this you have to divide each one of these diagonal lines up separately and carefully in order to get your circle to look as well as possible. It's always tricky, but you can do it if you just take your time and find out what truly and honestly this would look like. Because you never think that reaching over this far would give you a circle, but in fact, if you don't do that, your circle will pop up. It won't sit back in space, so you have to obey your little spots once you get it. And the circle always touches here and here and here and here. It's just these arcs that we have to think about and get to work for us. So this circle is 3 feet wide, so bigger than the widest measure of your cartridge paper. But it doesn't appear very large here. But it is sitting down in space happily. And this would be our center here. We put a thickness on it, and you just echo the circle above. No need to do another box down there. But for the time being, we'll leave it as is. It's important for us to next know where our wall is. It is 1, 2, 3, 4.5 feet beyond our table. We know that this is 3 feet, and we know where the center of 3 feet is. We have to extend these lines. If we have that need to know what comes next, we have to extend this line and extend this line. And this is that fantastic device where we go from one corner through the center of the width. So I'm taking this corner through the center of this, and I'm going to find out where the next 3 feet is. And it's there. And you could never guess what that would be. You have to do it. You have to have a method. And as you recall, I was telling you that I was able to make a drawing like this on the bus without a ruler, and it worked out just fine. That's why we're doing this, is because it's such an important skill. And if I divide this into 3 parts, getting a little smaller as they go back, if I do that carefully, so there's the first biggest part, then the next part, then the next part, I'll be able to add that other foot. I'll just see what I came up with here. And I'll be able to add another foot, and not only that, but I have to add another 1.5 feet. So I've got that much now to add. And I'll be right at the wall. Okay, so I divided that up into 3 because we know this is 3 feet. This was 3 feet, this is 3 feet. And I divided it up into 3 parts, and then in the middle is half. So now I know what that is, what I need to have. So, and I mark it on my paper. That's the next 1.5 feet. And there it is. The other way you could do that would be to put another 3 feet and just use half of it. That would be another way. But this is maybe a little quicker. So here's our wall right here. and it's going to keep on going. We don't know where it ends, so we're going to let it just keep on going. Now, as you recall, it was very important the last time, and it's just as important this time, that we put in our increments on this wall as well. So I use my left vanishing point and start to draw them. Now, you can draw them all the way, or what's probably the best thing to do is to just line your set square up and put a notch on your measuring line against the wall. So this is the measuring line that is 7.5 feet away from the wall. So 3, 6, 1.5 is 7.5. And this is the measuring line right against the wall. And we're going to need that quite a bit. We've got several things to get up here. And there's 3 feet. There's 2 feet. And 1 foot. Okay. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And now that we have that, this is always interesting that you use the opposite vanishing point to draw a wall, but we'll continue on with that. So we'll draw we drew the baseline of our floor with the right vanishing point. Our left wall, we used our right vanishing point, and then here we go again. Back here, we don't know how far we're going to go, so we'll do that. And now I'll use the 10. And that'll give me this, and how it diminishes so quickly. If we look to see where our built-in cabinetry is in relation to our table, it's 1 foot back, and it's right inside the wall. We'll have to now divide this back panel into 3 parts. We'll look at dividing it into 3 parts, larger closer to us and smaller as it goes away. And we'll put 1 foot against the wall. We'll bring it over and put 1 foot. So the table starts here, and 1 foot inside the table is right here. This piece was 8 feet high, so we also need that now. And I'm not using this line. That's 7 feet away from the wall. We want to be right in the wall. So we need the 8-foot line right here. There's our 8-foot line. Here's our 1 foot in from where the table was. So we'll put this up, trying to keep them straight. It's 4 boxes wide, 4 feet wide. So this is 2 feet. That's 2 feet. And we want to go 4 feet. That's 2 feet, and we want to go 4 feet. When we started in from this table, we took a foot off, which left us 2 feet to the end of the table. So now I know that this is 2 feet, 2 feet by 8 feet. If I want to know what the next 2 feet is, I have to find the middle of this box. So it's 8, so 4 is the middle of this box. So I'm going to go through 4 and see where it lines up with this top line. That's going to give me the width of my display. This display, it occurs 1/2 foot beyond this. So if this is 2 feet, then this, approximately this would be 1 foot, and half of this is about like that. So if I use my paper, I can take this and bring it over here, and that will give me where this display would begin, out here. We're not going to see much of it, but that's where it would begin. From the wall, it is 2.5. What we should actually do is map this out and make sure if what the space is from here to here, we need this. We need to know what that looks like. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4.5 feet here, and we have to see what those look like so we can start measuring everything over here. So here's 1 foot. We estimated that this was 1 foot. Here is 2 feet from the table. This was 3 feet from the table, and then we had 1.5. So we have to now divide that so that it's into 3, so that we get 1, and then we also get a half. So this is 1/2 foot. We have to remember that that's only 1/2 foot. Our display, it's 2.5 feet from the wall. So here's our 1/2 foot, here's our 2 feet. So that means our display starts here. Put a vertical. It's very close to here, but far enough away, hopefully. Very close. It measures 3 feet. Okay, so there's 1. This will be 2. And if I divide this into 3, that'll be 3. How we did that was we knew that this was 3 feet. We brought that up and found that this too was 3 feet. We took what would be half of that, so that would be 1.5 feet, and we put it here. We put 1 and we put a half. We brought the half along because we need 2.5 to find this corner. And then we need 3, so we used 1, 2, found this is 1/3 of that. In perspective, we made this a little smaller than that, and this a little smaller than that. So that's approximately where that would be. And now we have this positioned correctly, and we have everything ready now just for the height of it. If we look back on this drawing, our grid, we'll see that it was 3 feet high. So I'll just bring 3 feet along the wall. You remember how we do this now. We have to walk this over to the wall. There's the wall. We go up the wall to the 3 feet that we brought over, and now we go this way. We're looking for where it touches the 2 verticals that we put up for this display. So that's here and here. And here. And now we'll use this vanishing point to bring those along. So when you're measuring against the wall, it's always a good idea to go to the wall that's closest to what you're drawing. Now that seems like a very obvious thing to say, but quite often people don't think about it that way, that it's just easier. We need to work on our built-in some more. We have to show how deep it is. So we need 3 feet. So there's 1/2 foot. Remember, this was just a half. 1, 2, and another half. And you don't always have to do everything in order. I found it easier to put this in first because it made me conscious of this, how far this was and how to break it up. So now I'm confident I have, this is a half. So mark your halves everywhere you need them, because they'll be indistinguishable between your full feet if you're not looking, and that could be a problem. We'll need to pull this width, the width of our built-ins, we need to pull that forward, because we need a box that exact width that's 3 feet deep, a half, 1, 2, and a half. Remember, we were using that, so I might as well map that out. So there's my box on the floor from there to here, and there's the center. I know the center, so I just have to go from here through there to see how far back to go. So let's bring this back so we'll be ready when we get those lines back. We'll know where to stop it. So here I am. I've got my half, 1, 2, and a half. I'm going from this corner through the middle, always the middle of the width, and away I go, and I'll see. And it's never where you'd think it would be. It's always a little bit less, I always find. So that's 3 feet deep. It doesn't seem like much, but it is. And then you just be careful to bring it across only so far as you need it. A little bit further won't hurt, but we have a lot of lines now, so we want to not get confused. And there it is. That's our 3 feet back. We're confident about that. And now we can make a vertical. And remember, you've got a box here with 4 corners, so you have to bring them back to here. Where these cross, remember, that's the depth, and all the depth you've got. So you need to use your vanishing point to show the underside of the top of that box, because we're at 8 feet and our eye level is at 6. So that means that we're going to see the underside, just the way we can see the top of the bottom here, down here. And it's a good idea to draw that all the way through. I know it's adding more lines, but it's a good idea because you may want shelving in here, and you'll need the back line as well. We might as well put up a shelf to show you what I mean. So here we go. We've got that, and now this will come down, and they're going to line up, which is always a good sign. This top part will line up with the bottom part. And now let's put a shelf in just to see what's going to happen. And you don't have to have shelves in here whatsoever, but if you do want them, this is how you do it. So we'll take one, maybe about at 4 feet, we'll put a shelf in, so you go straight across the width. And with shelves, just automatically do 2 lines. They have depth. Thickness, they have thickness, so you need thickness. Now, where this touches and where this touches, you use your left vanishing point, your left vanishing point, to go only this far. You can't go any further. That's the only depth you have. And you stop it, and you go the other way. And here, you see, you have got the ability to go all the way back there, but it's going to be hidden by the wall. We're not going to see this. But supposing you have something sitting on your shelf, and you don't want to just fill part of your shelf, but your whole shelf. So you have some stacks of clothing, and you want to sit them here, or maybe even a slanted clothing. Shirts are often placed like this. Then part of this is going to be behind this, and we won't see it. But it'll be more convincing if we place it like this. It will look more real if you cut that little piece off, and people can appreciate that this is built into the wall even more this way. In our banner, it occurs right at the end where the table began. This is where our banner is going to take place. It's 7 feet tall. At this point, I made a big mistake. I shouldn't have used the 7 feet on the red line. I should have used the 7 feet on the blue line. I do correct it later, but I don't notice until I'm inking in, so you can fix that now. On our floor plan, it's 3 feet wide. This is 3 feet, and this is 3 feet over here. So all we have to do now is turn and go this way. So we have to extend this line and extend this line. There's middle, and this time I'll go from this corner through this center line, center of my width of 3 feet by 3 feet, and go this way, and that will give me the next 3 feet. And because our banner began conveniently where our table stopped, we can just use that next 3 feet and it will give us what we need. So I just have to bring this back this way. Just bring it back to the wall, and where it hits the wall is going to give me the 3 feet width I need for my banner. Now, the banner sticks out from the wall, as you recall, a little bit, so we've got to show that as well. So now I'm using my left vanishing point, and I'm going to go straight out. And it goes up, you see, so that it is important that we do this. It seems ridiculous, it's not that much, but we'll put a shadow there, and that will make the difference probably. That we'll be able to appreciate it more when we see that. And it's a matter of interest, too, to see how just that little bit of distance from one to the other. And I'm not getting really close enough to this to be really able to show it, but at the bottom we're going to have a little box that we can put the circle for how this banner retracts, what it retracts into, a little cylinder. So we can just show that. Just make sure it's away from the wall. It's a little cylinder there. And it's just small, so we can indicate it up to where, and I'm always using my 2 vanishing points. You should never have to guess anything. Everything should be either going to one vanishing point or the other. No guessing. The built-in cabinetry is about 2/3 of a foot, not even a full foot, away from our banner. It is two and a bit. We need, and this is really easy too. There's 3 feet. We have that. We know where that is. The next 3 feet will take us to the end of the built-ins. So that's our next job, is to find our next 3 feet. So we'll bring the center along. Using our right vanishing point, we'll bring the center along to here. And again, I'll go from this corner through the center of the width of this box, and I'll end up with my next 3 feet. And bring that along to the wall. And that brings me, so there's the 3 feet for this. I've now got another 3 feet. That brings me to the end of the built-in cabinets. Then I've only got 1 more foot left, and it will bring me to the right wall. So let's do that as well. This now is, if I divide this into 3, leaving this a little larger than the middle one, and the middle one being a little larger than that one. This is all very approximate, but now I know that that's about approximately what a foot looks like here, so I can use just maybe a little smidge less than that to give me the final foot. So that'll be my final foot. Now remember, the purpose of this style of working is to be able to do it anywhere at any time. And it's also the skill of being able to judge relative proportions. How big is this in relation to what I just did? And that is such an incredibly valuable skill. And you work at it all the time. You enter a space and you judge, okay, is this a 10 feet high, or is it 9.5, or is it 8, or is it 15? What is it? And when you can tell, your mind will automatically begin to design the space, to design what space is available to you and what you're going to do with it. And it's so incredibly important to be able to do that. Okay, so now we have our right wall. We've got a space for our built-ins. And our built-ins, though... Oh, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. This should not be like this. I was using the front measuring line. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I made a mistake. So it's supposed to be 1 foot lower than the built-ins here. So we've got to correct that now. Good thing we weren't working in black. So I've got to bring this over to here. I'm bringing 7 feet over. And now I'm going to use my left vanishing point to bring this up again. And I'll use the right vanishing point to complete it. So when we black this in, we'll have to correct my mistake. Now, when I bring 8 feet over for the built-ins, I'll get the right height. And they're 1 foot away from the corner of the wall, which we figure this is 1 foot, and that's my 8 feet there. Keep your eye on where you're going. From the vertical banner, this is about 2/3 of a foot away. It starts 1 foot in, so I've got 1, 2.5, because this is 3, remember. So that's 2.5. So if I bring this over, that's going to give me where my built-ins stop. And it doesn't look as if I have as much space as I did on my grid drawing, because this is sticking out. The banner is sticking out a little bit. That's why. So that's why we can't see it as well. And we decided only to go 1.5 feet back for this one. It's so narrow, it didn't make sense to go 3 feet. And this is 1.5 feet. There's 1/2 foot, remember? 1/2 foot. And there's 1 foot. So we've got 1.5 feet. Along this line is 1.5 feet. So I just have to extend. This line is already extended. And this line, I'm using my left vanishing point for everything. This one is extended. And there's 1.5 feet out, because that was 1.5. We decided that was 1/2. And all I have to do now is extend this back this way, which I should have done, and this back this way. And I just have to find the middle of this, so I'll make an X. And that'll be my middle. Right there. So I just have to go from there through the middle of this, the width of my built-ins, and where it touches my green line that's inside the wall will give me what I need. That's the next 1.5 feet. So if I use this vanishing point, my right vanishing point, and bring that over, it's going to cross the width that I brought back from here. That's the width of the built-ins. It's going to cross there. And I remember now why we did that. We did it because we wouldn't have been able to see where the shells ended if we didn't make it 1.5 rather than 3. 3 was just too much. Okay, so this is the plane that we would see right here. And just like with this built-in, we have to go up here, because there's no guessing where this top plane, this underside, would be. You have to know by where these two collide, where the width of this panel inside the wall crosses over with how tall it is. And you get the height, the height from the vanishing point. So no guessing, you just have all of those things that you follow. So here we have our built-in now, and we have this. We should put in a shelf. Maybe for consistency's sake, we'll put it at 4 feet again. That seems like a good height to be able to see what's going on. So I'm bringing 4 feet over. This time I'm sure I'm measuring on the wall, not the feet out front. So there we go. And that's the front facing us. And then this is going to tell us how much of the top of the shelf we're going to see, because I only bring it to the depth. And then we go to here. So that's a shelf at 4 feet on the wall in my built-in. We have our man left to draw. Top of his head has to just be right on the eye level. We'll put him in. Now we stood him just at the corner of the table. There's plenty of room for him here, so we can stand him. I'm going to stand him right about here. And it doesn't matter if you're not exactly in the same spot as I am, but I'll put him here. That'll be his center line. And there's the top of his head. And I like to use a piece of paper. You could certainly do this by eye, and it's probably better practice to do it by eye, but just to hurry things along here. Sometimes on the way to a client meeting, you have an idea that you want to try out really fast. And doing an estimated perspective like this, even without a ruler, you know, how we measure with our fingers, even that can be very helpful. The top third is for 3/4 of it is his head, and the rest is neck. Then there's shoulder, but shoulder has a triangle there, a triangular muscle, so don't forget that. And then this one is nothing, but the little bit below is his waist. And then the halfway is where the legs begin, and you put that line in, otherwise they don't look long enough, or they won't be long enough, so you kind of show that line. And then the second, the half down here, is bottom of the knee, and the rest is the rest of his foot. And you come down, because you have to show the top of his foot, because we're so far, it's so far below eye level, and arms are attached to the body. And waist is where elbow is, so you can start as elbow. That's not always true. I've met people whose elbows are much higher, but it's the kind of norm. Okay, so there he is. But we're in a 3/4 view, so we want to have a little bit, and you put a gesture on, which is helpful, because we're not ready to commit to anything yet. We just want to get a feel for where he's going to go, and head is going to come a little forward, and arm is going to attach there, and their waist, the waist seemed to be a little bit more straight, and we don't want them to be too skinny. And probably, you know, maybe legs a bit apart rather than standing too stiffly. And here's feet. There's waist, so his elbow, put his elbow there. And then we had his arm reaching to the table last time, but I don't think I'm close enough this time. I put him too far back. If you're closer, you can do that, but I put him too far back. So maybe he's just holding on to some merchandise that he's picked up, a sweater or something. Now we're ready to ink things in. And it's better if you ink in what's in the foreground first, of course. Although when we began our drawing, we started with things that were in the background. Now when we're inking in, it makes sense to work with things that are in the foreground because they're going to overlap the things in the back. So I can't really get very close to this, but you'll get an idea of. So keep your shapes fairly simple. Don't make them too complicated. But the limbs taper, so you start off a little wider and you finish up a little narrower. That's and it comes all the way down to here, and there's our circle. It retracts like that, but there's also a little attachment at the top here that we have to put in. So I need to find the center. If I just make an X from here to here, that will give me where this little attachment is. That holds it, clips to the top, and then this fits into the bottom. it rolls up in like a tube down here. When you're drawing your circle, it would be advisable to be able to turn your paper. I think we have a better chance at a circle though this time round than on our grid. It was in a rather distorted area on our grid, so sorry this is a bit messy, but I can't get my head right over it, which you need to do for circles. So you do that, put your head right over it and get it in there properly. But it's enough of a guide that when I work over top, I'll have something pretty wobbly. And don't forget walls and floors, that they're so important and they always get forgotten. So we'll put those in. And you only have to place them where we see them, so you wouldn't run it through your table unless it's too late. And things that are alike, like the 8 feet for my 2 built-ins, I can do them at the same time. Just keeping an eye on that, the idea that part of this is hidden back in here. And I can put the shelves in or leave them out, but it's probably a good idea to put them in. When we put our marker paper over top, we're always hopeful we're going to see everything, but it does have that milky kind of finish, so the more guidelines we have, the better. So I'm a little off there. I can't really reach that. It's a little bit out of my range here, so. But I know you'll be able to do it better. We can put this other wall in. Another thing we need to do is to put the light over our table. We'll get the rest of this in, and then we'll do that. Oh, I made a mistake with my shelf as well. It should only go back this far. I went to this measuring line and I should have only used the depth of this. So hopefully you can, it's not too late for you too, if you've been following along and didn't notice. And we don't do that because it's hidden, and our shirt, if we put our shirt in, a fair bit of that is hidden too, or a little bit of it anyway. That's really quite a nice thing to have happen because it gives some space and depth. And for our table, we at least want to show where it ends down here. And then we can put in, I remember last time we put in a couple of legs, one here. And that shows us where that would end. And then we drew a box so we knew where the other parts would be. So if I take that and bring it here, that's where this leg will end. And here, that's where this leg will end. And the last one, we don't see it, but if we did, it would end back there. I just have to bring this back. And it would end there. So it's the shortest one of all. This leg should of course come all the way down to the blue box. And this one ends here. These two are long, and it's easy just to draw this across. This is a mistake. Remember to bring the leg all the way down to the corner of the blue box. And those two are long. The light over the table is something we should look at too. So let's bring this box right up. The one we used for the table legs, let's bring that up to the ceiling. And we've got the front part of it. Now, we just have to find out what this spot is on the ceiling. And you do that by bringing it over to the wall first, going up the wall, to the ceiling, and then going across. So where it touches the ceiling, you go across. That's our first line, and it's this line. Now, when we want this line, we drew this line using the right vanishing point. So when we want to draw this line, we use the right vanishing point as well. And where they cross this line from the floor is where I know to turn and go the other way. What I can trust is this. If I want a square, I know that it will cross here. When this line comes over, a 45-degree angle is what I'm using here. I have to have one here, and this is the correct one. The lowest that we could hang this light is 8 feet, and we have 8 feet right here. So that's how we'll know where to place our light. And this is quite a nice size for a light. The one we did on our grid, I think we made that one a little bit, someone made that one a little bit too small. But this now is, I think, a good height for us. So now, again, what we're going to do is trust our this doesn't look straight. We're going to trust our 45-degree perspective, and if this orange line, it's unfortunate it's crossing over where that is, but we're going to probably reshape that, so that's not a problem. That will be the bottom of our light. That's unfortunate, it's stuck right there. So now we have a box for our light. We can ink that in as well. I think if we make round lights, they won't line up with the line of the ceiling anymore. If we put some shelves in this piece, we can measure as well. So if that's 3 feet and we want to know where the next foot is, we can bring this along and bring the last foot over. And then use the other vanishing point to bring these to the front. Then it's just a matter of taking them across. They too can only go back as far as this black line that I've made. That's the thickness for it. So there's the first one, there's the second one. Now, if this were made of plexiglass or something we could see through, then we'd see where the shelves end. But most likely, we'll only see the beginning of them. And they have thickness too, even though we're not dealing with details yet. Just as a reminder, all of this has thickness, because this gets forgotten so easily. And keep using your vanishing points all the way through. Oops, went too far. This will have to stop. And you see what happened there? I had to come forward now because I'm looking here where those two cross. So I have to make adjustments for the thickness when I make this line. So it's no longer that original orange line. And I didn't think to do that here, so be more like that.